The platform that didn't let him leave. At 6:47 p.m. on a Monday, the city transit system recorded my colleague as having left the station. At 6:47 p.m., he was still standing on the platform. This wasn't a matter of perspective or timing. It wasn't a camera glitch. It wasn't a delay in the feed. The system says he exited. The footage says he didn't. And that contradiction was officially resolved within 48 hours. I know, because I was the one who reviewed the footage. His name was Mihai Radu. He was 41, divorced, lived alone, and worked in operations analytics for a logistics firm that subcontracted half its reporting to city infrastructure. We weren't friends, but we sat close enough that I knew his habits. He arrived early. He left late. He never complained. The week before he disappeared, he had slept at the office twice. Not dramatically, no announcement, no breakdown. He just didn't go home. When I asked if everything was okay, he smiled and said he was. Almost done. That phrase stayed with me. Almost done. On the day he vanished, Mihai left the building at 6:02 p.m. His badge logged out. His computer shut down normally. No errors, no forced close. At 6:11 p.m., he entered Central East Station. At 6:12 p.m., he tapped through the gates. At 6:14 p.m., he walked onto Platform 4. And then he stopped. The camera angle wasn't great, but it was clear enough to see his posture. He stood near the third column from the emergency phone, his backpack still on, one hand resting against the concrete as if to steady himself. He didn't check the arrival board. He didn't look at his phone. He didn't pace. He just stood there. The first train arrived at 6:21. Doors opened. People got on. Mihai didn't move. The second train came at 6:33. Same thing. At 6:47, the system recorded his exit through the north corridor. But on camera, he was still there. I didn't notice it right away. I was reviewing random passenger flow discrepancies when his file came up flagged as resolved despite mismatch. That was unusual enough to make me open it. At first, I assumed the exit camera had missed him. Then I checked the corridor footage. Nothing. No Mihai. I checked the stairwell. Nothing. I checked the street cameras outside the station, moving frame by frame from 6:45 to 7 o'clock. He never appeared. I went back to the platform footage and slowed it down. At 6:46:58, Mihai was visible, leaning against the column. At 6 hours 47 minutes and 1 second, the camera showed the column empty. There was no transition frame. No blur. No movement away from the spot. No obstruction. He was simply not there anymore. I remember sitting back in my chair and waiting for my brain to catch up. People don't disappear like that. Not in public places. Not on platforms with 4 cameras and a dozen witnesses. But the witnesses didn't matter. Because no one reported seeing anything. I asked station security if anyone had mentioned a man standing still for a long time. They checked the log. No reports. I asked if anyone had reported a disturbance. No. I asked if anyone had reported a missing person. No, they said. Why would they? That was the first moment something felt wrong in a way I couldn't explain. Mihai didn't have close family in the city. His ex-wife lived abroad. His parents were dead. He had friends at work, but not the kind who would call the police if he didn't show up for a day or two. And he hadn't missed work. That's the part people struggle with when I tell them this. Mihai didn't fail to show up. 2 days after he disappeared, his tasks were marked complete. His reports were submitted. His dashboards updated on time. His manager assumed he was working remotely. When I called her to ask if she'd heard from him, she checked his activity log and said, "He's been very productive." I told her he hadn't been seen since Monday. She paused. Then she said, "That's not what the system says." I escalated the case internally. I shouldn't have. It wasn't my role. But once you see something like that, it's hard to pretend it's just data. The response I got back was short. Burnout indicators present. Case closed. I didn't know what that meant. I asked my supervisor. She sighed in a way that told me she'd had this conversation before. Some disappearances aren't emergencies, she said. They're outcomes. She explained that the city had begun cross-referencing public movement data with workplace stress indicators the year before. It was framed as a wellness initiative. The idea was to identify people under sustained strain before something catastrophic happened. Heart attacks, breakdowns, accidents. Mihai, apparently, had been flagged. No sick days in 3 years. Consistently late exits. Increasing platform dwell times. The system classified him as at risk. So where is he? I asked. She looked at me carefully. Resolved, she said. That word again. Resolved how? She didn't answer. I went back to the footage that night and watched it again, over and over, looking for anything I missed. That's when I noticed something else. At 6 hours 46 minutes and 30 seconds, about 30 seconds before Mihai vanished, the emergency phone beside him flickered. Not rang. Not activated. Just flickered. I checked maintenance logs. The phone had been taken out of service 3 months earlier due to low usage. There shouldn't have been any power running to it. I went to Central East Station the next evening. Same time. Same platform. I stood where Mihai had stood. I didn't plan to stay long, but time moved differently there. The longer I stood still, the less urgency I felt to leave. Trains arrived and departed without pulling my attention. It wasn't peaceful. It was neutral. At exactly 6:47, my phone vibrated. A message from an unknown number. You've been here long enough. I stepped back instinctively, heart racing. The platform was empty except for me. I checked my call log. No number. No record. When I looked up at the camera above the column, I felt, irrationally, that it was focused on me. I left the station immediately. The next morning, I checked Mihai's file again. It had changed. His name was still there, but the details were gone. No address. No employment history. Just a line under status. Journey completed. I tried to file a missing person report on my own. The police took my statement politely. They checked their database. No open case. No unidentified remains. No transit incident. One officer asked me if Mihai had a history of exhaustion or stress. Yes, I said. But who doesn't? He nodded, as if that answered something. 2 weeks later, another case appeared in my queue. Different name. Different station. Same pattern. Public place. Extended waiting. Recorded exit without footage. This time, there were 3 witnesses who remembered the person standing there. When questioned separately, all 3 agreed on one thing. They remembered the man being there. They didn't remember him leaving. And when asked when they last saw him, all 3 said the same thing. Just before I realized how tired I was. That was when I understood this wasn't an anomaly. It was a process. And Mihai wasn't the first. He was just the first one I noticed before the system finished smoothing him out. I still passed through Central East Station on my way home. Platform 4 is quieter now. Softer lighting. Fewer announcements. The emergency phone is gone completely. People don't linger there anymore. They keep moving. Because staying too long feels wrong. And because some exits don't show up on the cameras. Not anymore. Thank you for watching. Subscribe and like for more amazing stories on our channel. See you soon.